بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصافات صفا فالزاجرات زجرا فالتاليات ذكرا إن إلهكم لواحد رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما ورب المشارق.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue with Surah As-Saffat and the verses that talks about Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we reached ayah number 88. Ayah number 88 from Surah As-Saffat. يقول الله عز وجل: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. فنظر نظرة في النجوم فقال إني سقيم فتولوا عنه مدبرين فراغ إلى آلهتهم فقال ألا تأكلون ما لكم لا تنطقون فراغ عليهم ضربا باليمين فأقبلوا إليه يزفون قال أتعبدون ما تنحتون والله خلقكم وما تعملون. So we'll take it one ayah at a time, inshallah. So this ayah, فَنَظَرَ نَظْرَةً فِي النُّجُومِ, which means then he cast a glance at the stars. So when Ibrahim alayhi salam, he gave da'wah to his people and inviting them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to worship him alone and to disbelieve in these idols that they worship besides Allah. They made these images of these righteous people, which they would take them as intercessors between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as the previous verses says that he said to them, أَإِفْكًا آلِهَةً دُونَ اللَّهِ تُرِيدُونَ, you're making aliha, gods besides Allah, this is a lie, that you're seeking this. فَمَا ظَنُّكُمْ بِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ, what do you think how your Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will treat you when you return back to him, when you worshipped other than him? So then the ayah says, فَنَظَرَ نَظْرَةً فِي النُّجُومِ, he looked, he gave a look or a cast to the stars. This is what literally the verse says. Imam As-Sa'di rahimahullah, he says in the Tafseer, as you see, page 1427, فَأَرَادَ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ أَنْ يَكْسِرَ أَصْنَامَهُ, he wanted عليه السلام to break their أصنام, their idols, ويتمكن من ذلك, and for him to have the ability and the means to do so. فانتهز الفرصة في حين غفلة منهم. انتهز الفرصة, الفرصة is the opportunity, and انتهز, that means he took the opportunity, he grabbed it before he lose it. في حين غفلة منهم, when they are in state of غفلة, when they're not paying attention, this is something that he planned to do. لما ذهبوا إلى عيد من أعيادهم, when they went to one of their festivities, one of their Eids. فخرج معهم, so they asked him to go with him, actually, so they told him to go with him, for him to go with them in this festivity. So the ayah says, فَنَظَرَ نَظْرَةً فِي النُّجُومِ فَقَالَ إِنِّي سَقِيمٌ. So he looked at the stars and he says, إِنِّي سَقِيمٌ, I'm sick. He says في الحديث الصحيح, in the authentic hadith, لم يكذب إبراهيم عليه السلام إلا ثلاث كذبات. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he did not lie except 3 times. And the word كذبات or كذب here is not an openly lies like this, but it's in the category of al-ma'arid. Al-ma'arid is when a person is in necessity, he would say something that means 2 things or 3 things. He means one thing and they would understand it in a different meaning. Not clear lie against the truth. And this was for the sake of Allah, to save for the matters of the deen and to save his wife, as it's mentioned. So قوله إني سقيم, when he said إني سقيم, I'm sick. وقوله بل فعله كبيرهم هذا, when he said to them later, it's the biggest of them is the one that did this. وقوله عن زوجته إنها أختي, when he said about his wife that she is my sister, to save her from the king, that he would take her if he know that it's his wife. And each one has to be, for him, he means one thing, and for them, they would take it literally, so that they would leave him alone when he said, إني سقيم. He says, والقصد, what is meant here, أنه تخلف عنهم ليتم له الكيد بآلهته. What is meant here is that he did not go with them. تخلف عنهم, so that الكيد, or the plot or the plan that he has against their آلهة to be established. فنظر نظرة في النجوم. And النجوم, what's the significance of looking at the stars? It said that they are, or they used to have this knowledge of looking into the stars and predicting things. So he did not say anything, he just looked at it, so they thought, oh, he knew something. Or from النجم, نجم الشيء, that means بدا له, that something appeared to him. The Arabs, they use this also this way. When they say someone is thinking about something, even sometimes people would do this. He would look to the stars, as if this is a sign that he's thinking. Sometimes people, even when they want to look like they're thinking, they look like this, right? So they use this statement as if someone is deeply thinking. So when he said, Inni saqim, I'm sick, and also can be explained, he's sick and tired of what they're doing, worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the point here is for them to all go, and he's alone with their idols to do what he planned to do. So the ayah says, فَتَوَلَّوْا عَنْهُ مُدْبِرِينَ. So they تَوَلَّوْا عَنْهُ, they turned away from him. مُدْبِرِينَ, al-idbar is to give one's back and leave. So when they left, he says, فَلَمَّا وَجَدَ الْفُرْصَةِ. When he found the fursa, the opportunity to do what he wanted to do, فَرَاغَ إِلَى آلِهَتِهِمْ. He went to their آلِهِمْ, their idols, the things that they worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And فَرَاغَ, and we took that in Surah Al-Dhariyat, when Ibrahim alayhi salam, فَرَاغَ إِلَى أهله, to his family, when the guests came. So he went to his family, and we talked about this word, فَرَاغَ, that means he went in a very subtle, soft, smooth way, without nobody paying attention. So the guests, they came to him, instead of saying them, hey, by the way, I'm going to go fix you some food, and made a big noise about it. No, he just went in a ease and smooth to his family, saying, let's fix something, and they fixed it, which how a person would take care of his guest. So here, فَرَاغَ إِلَى آلِهَتِهِمْ, أي أسرع إليها, he went quickly to their idols, على وجه الخفية والمراوغة. خفية, hiding himself, and المراوغة, to not to make a scene of it. المراوغة is when someone goes like this, back and forth, right to the left, try to, I'm not sure if it's a proper way to say sneaky in a way. This is for a human being to hide himself. So he went at ease to their alih, so that they don't see him, or nobody would pay attention. فقال ألا تأكلون. So he said, فقال متهكما بها. He said to these idols, ألا تأكلون, why don't you eat? ما لكم لا تنطقون, what's the matter with you, why you're not speaking? And he says this متهكما. متهكما, that means making fun of it, ridiculing it. التهكم is when you say something to ridicule someone. And of course, these are stones. These are not even the images that they carry. These are just stones, nothing but stones. Does not benefit itself or cause harm to others. He says, أي فكيف يليق أن تعبد وهي أنقص من الحيوانات التي تأكل. So how can it be, or it fits for it to be worshipped, when it's less أنقص from even the animals that people eat? وتكلم, and the people, even some, people speak to their animals sometimes. Even the animals, they don't understand, but they get an understanding of to go right, to go left. But these idols, nothing whatsoever. وهذه جماد لا تأكل ولا تكلم ولا تكلم. This jamad, al-jamad is the non-living things. Something that is non-living, does not eat, does not do anything, does not speak. So فراغ عليهم ضربا باليمين. فراغ عليهم, and again the word here فراغ, عليهم, upon them, ضربا باليمين, hitting them with his right hand. أي جعل يضربها بقوته ونشاطه. So he kept on hitting it with his قوة, with his power and his energy. حتى جعلها جذاذا. That means he broke them, all of them. إلا كبيرا لهم لعلهم إليه يرجعون. Except the biggest of them, so that maybe they would return back to him. And it's all meant for them to يعملوا عقولهم, for them to think and to use reason. When he kept the biggest of them, for them to use reason, meaning the disbelievers, when they come back. So he says فأقبلوا إليه يزفون, and the ayat gives us, some of the details of what he did عليه السلام. So then فأقبلوا إليه يزفون, they came to him يزفون, or in haste, as it says in the translation. So these idol worshippers, came towards him hastening. أيسرعون ويهرعون. They came hastening because this is a major disaster that happened to their idols. Their idols have been destroyed. يريدون أن يوقعوا به بعدما بحثوا. And it's mentioned other verses in the Quran of some of the details of this. So, but here فأقبلوا إليه يزفون. أقبلوا, they went forward to him, يزفون, in haste. And then he says قال أتعبدون ما تنحتون. But he says here in the tafsir يريدون أن يوقعوا به بعدما بحثوا. They wanted to يوقعوا به. يوقعوا به, and توقع بالشخص, that means that you want to hurt the person. From وقع, when something fell. But this is an expression. أوقعت به ضررا. That means I harmed him. So يريدون أن يوقعوا به. يوقعوا به. بعدما بحثوا, after they searched. وقالوا, and they said من فعل هذا بآلهتنا إنه لمن الظالمين. In other surah, they said, who did this to our آلهة, to our idols? Indeed, he is from the wrongdoers. وقيل لهم, and it was said to them, سمعنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم. We heard فتى, a young man that is mentioning these idols with سوء, in a bad way. يقال له إبراهيم, he's called Ibrahim. So, and he says, يقول تالله لأكيدن. This is what he used to say, as is mentioned in other verses, when he said, تالله لأكيدن أصنامكم بعد أن تولوا مدبرين. By Allah, I would destroy your asnam after you turn away. So then, فوبخوه ولموه, they scolded him, they blamed him. So then he says, in other verses in the Quran, that he said to them, بل فعله كبيرهم هذا فاسألوهم إن كانوا ينطقون. Ask, he's the biggest of them, is the one that did this. فاسألوهم إن كانوا ينطقون. Ask them if they're able to speak. فرجعوا إلى أنفسهم فقالوا إنكم أنتم الظالمون. When he said this, they returned back to themselves. They said, you are the wrong ones. ثم نكسوا على رؤوسهم. Then they inverted back on their heads. That means they returned back to their evil belief. لقد علمت ما هؤلاء ينطقون. You know that they do not utter, they don't speak. قال أفتعبدون من دون الله ما لا ينفعكم شيئا ولا يضركم. This is his point that he wanted to make. That you're worshipping besides Allah what does not benefit you anything, it does not harm you. The ayah. So وقال هنا, he said here in this ayat, after they came back to him فأقبلوا إليه يزفون. قال أتعبدون ما تنحتون. You worship what you تنحتون. النحت is when you carve a statue from the stone and you have whatever the tools. This is النحت. أي تنحتونه بأيديكم. That means you're making these images with your own hands. وتصنعونه. You manufacture them, you build them. Your own self, you did it yourself. فكيف تعبدونهم وأنتم الذين صنعتموهم. How can you worship them when you are the ones that made these images? وتتركون الإخلاص لله. And you leave al-ikhlas, the sincerity, the devotion in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. الذي خلقكم وما تعملون. The one that created you and what you do. And here the ayah والله خلقكم وما تعملون. The ulama talked about وما تعملون. والله خلقكم, he's the one that created you. وما تعملون, either ما here it's called مصدرية, or in the meaning of الاسم الموصول. Meaning, and both are correct. والله خلقكم وعملكم. He created you and created your deeds. Because if one's actions are nothing but also a creation of Allah, because you are a creation of Allah. So, and this is an evidence that everything is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also it means وَالَّذِي تَعْمَلُونَ, and what you do, meaning these idols that you made, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it because you made it and you are a creation of Allah. So therefore anything that the human beings they make, right, it is not created by the human beings. It's made by the human beings, but who's the one that created it also? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the creation of Allah, when it makes something, it's also creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can you worship them besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So then the ayat, just to be brief according to the verses, they said قالوا بنوا له بنيانا فألقوه في الجحيم فأرادوا به كيدا فجعلناهم الأسفلين. قالوا بنوا له بنيانا. They said ابنوا, and here قالوا بنوا له بنيانا. And this is a command to build. بنيانا, a building, a structure. أي عاليا مرتفعا. That means it's high, rise, building. وأوقدوا فيه النار, and ignited with fire. فألقوه في الجحيم, and cast him, throw him in the jahim, in the fire. He says جزاء على ما فعل من تكسير آلهتهم, as a punishment for him of what he did for destroying, breaking these alihah. وأرادوا به كيدا, as the ayah says, and they wanted كيدا. فأرادوا به كيدا, they wanted kaid for him, plot to harm him as much as they can. فجعلناهم الأسفلين, we made them the أسفلين, the lowest of all. So أرادوا به كيدا ليقتلوه أشنع قتلة. They did not just kill him, they wanted to kill him in the most intense, bad way. أشنع, الشناعة is when something is very difficult even for a person to see. And that's why they made this fire. It's mentioned in the Athar where if a bird flies from on top of it, it would burn and fall. Huge fire. And they made a big building and they made a fire where they're not even able to come close to it. Not a fire where they put them in an oven or something like this. Fire that is from far distance, they would have to throw him with this what is it called? Cannibals, so that they don't come close to it. So this is the kaidah that they wanted to do to him. فَجَعَلْنَاهُمُ الْأَسْفَلِينَ, we made them al-asfalin. Al-asfal is the lowest thing. He says رَدَّ اللَّهُ كَيْدَهُمْ فِي نُحُورِهِمْ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala returned their plots in their nuhur. An-nah is the throat here, and that means it's a statement to refer to the meaning of that they were defeated. اللهم إنا نجعلك في نحورهم. The dua of the Prophet ﷺ when he would meet his enemy, oh Allah, we make you in their nuhur. And once a person hit in here, in the throat, that means he's not able to do anything. وَجَعَلَ النَّارَ عَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the fire for Ibrahim alayhi salam cool and salaman, and peace for him, as it's mentioned in other parts of the Quran. So in the surah, what serves the objective of the surah, the details are mentioned in other parts of the Quran. And it's a miraculous thing for Ibrahim alayhi salam. And he said, Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil, as Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he said that Ibrahim alayhi salam said it when he was thrown into the fire. And the Prophet alayhi salam said it when the people of Quraysh came in the battle of Uhud. After the battle of Uhud, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sufficed for them and protected them. And the fire that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created to burn, at that moment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded it, Kuni bardan wa salaman ala Ibrahim, become cool, bardan wa salaman, and peace and safety for Ibrahim alayhi salam. So none of his body has been touched with the fire. And they saw that with their own eyes, a miraculous thing in front of them. So فأرادوا به كيدا فجعلناهم الأسفلين وقال إني ذاهب إلى ربي سيهدين. And he said that I'm returning to my Lord. وقال إني ذاهب إلى ربي, to my Lord سيهدين, he will guide me. He says here ولما فعلوا فيه هذا الفعل, when they did this evil action towards him عليه السلام, وأقام عليهم الحجة, and he established the evidence against them, and the matter was very clear to them. وأعذر منهم, and that means they have no excuse. أعذر منهم. العذر is the excuse. أعذر منهم, that means all of their excuses have been refuted. The matter is very clear to them. No one has any doubts anymore. Then قال إني ذاهب إلى ربي. I'm going to my Lord. أي مهاجر. And of course there's details. There's not mentioned. For something like that to happen, and they're all watching how he's going to be burned in this fire. And it seems like there might be the entire town are watching this, a big event, because of what he did to their idols. And they saw the miraculous thing with their own eyes, in which Ibrahim alayhi salam sitting in the fire, not being burned. Right? So this is ayat and hujaj against them. How can someone deny the truth in this case? And when the matter is over and he walks out, no harm whatsoever happened to him, and they still insisted to be upon al-kufr wal-'adhu billah. So what else is needed for him to do? So he says, قال إني ذاهب إلى ربي. I'm going to my Lord. Meaning أي مهاجر إليه, as it's mentioned also in Surah Al-Ankabut. وقال إني مهاجر إلى ربي. I'm making hijrah to my Lord for the sake of Allah. قاصد إلى الأرض المباركة أرض الشام. Going to the blessed land أرض الشام, the Sham area. سيهدين, he will guide me. يدلني ما فيه الخير لي من أمر ديني ودنياي. Guide me. The guidance has many different meanings to it. Physical guidance. What's the best place to go? What direction to take? And the religious also guidance. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me the direction of what is best for me in my matter of religion and my matter of dunya. وقال في الآية الأخرى, and he said another verse, وأعتزلكم وما تدعون من دون الله وأدعو ربي عسى ألا أكون بدعاء ربي شقيا وأعتزلكم. I will seclude myself away from you. All of that after these things happen, not from the first incident that they did something, said I'm leaving you. No, after staying with them and establishing the hujjah on them. And if something like that happens to him, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, then he can leave them. After thrown into a fire and he's safe from it, there's nothing more clear to them when it comes to the matters of the truth. And another verse, وَأَعْتَزِلُكُمْ, I would seclude myself away from you. وَمَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ, and what you're invoking besides Allah. Doesn't want to be with them while in their company, in their place, when they're associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَدْعُو رَبِّي, and I would invoke my Lord, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. عَسَى أَلَّا أَكُونَ بِدُعَاءِ رَبِّي شَقِيًّا, that maybe that I would not be perished by the dua of my Lord. That means I would be successful that way. And here the ayah Rabbi Habiri, when he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow upon him from the Salihin. And that's in the other ayah that we just read, وَأَعْتَزِلُكُمْ وَمَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَأَدْعُو رَبِّي عَسَى أَلَّا أَكُونَ بِدُعَاءِ رَبِّي شَقِيًّا فَلَمَّا اعْتَزَلَهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. When he secluded himself away from them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon him Ishaq and Yaqub and his offsprings. So it's a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a result of him saving his religion. And when anything that a person do for the sake of Allah, the ulama, they take from this, that if something is left for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would replace it by something better. And there's the athar, which the hadith, ulama talked about whether it's marfu' as weak, but it's a correct statement, of course, from the Sahaba for sure. And the hadith, there are differences of opinion. من ترك شيئا لله عوضه الله خيرا منه. Whoever leaves something for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would replace it by something better than it, but for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وقال إني ذاهب إلى ربي سيهدين ربي هب لي من الصالحين فبشرناه بغلام حليم. So he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbi habili. Al-hiba is the gift. Someone that does not deserve something and is given. Habili waladan, an offspring, yakunu min as-salihin. That he is from the righteous ones, not just for the sake of having a child. If a person would have a child that is a kafir, what's the point of it? And that's the concern. And this is why a person wants to get married, wants to have children, to make them from the salihin, from them to be among the righteous ones. And a person would take the means, and at the end the guidance is in the hands of Allah. وَذَلِكَ عِنْدَمَا أَيِّسَ مِنْ قَوْمٍ. He said this, and this is what he did, alayhi salam, after he gave up on his people. وَلَمْ يَرَ فِيهِمْ خَيْرًا, and he did not see any khayr in them. And again, I'm repeating, this is not a person who would say, well, I don't see in my people any good. Did you do what the like or close to what Ibrahim alayhi salam did? دعا الله أن يهب له غلاما. He made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he bestow upon him غلاما, a child, صالحا, righteous, ينفع الله به في حياته وبعد مماته, that he would benefit him in his life and after his death. So the matter will continue and the da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will continue. And this is something that the prophets of Allah, they wanted the khair and the goodness of matters of the hereafter and the obedience to Allah to be established on the face of earth. فاستجاب الله له. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted his dua. وقال فبشرناه بغلام حليم. We gave him the glad tidings with a ghulam, a child that is halim, forbearing. يقول هذا إسماعيل عليه السلام بلا شك. This is Ismail عليه السلام without any doubt, because the people of the book, they claim that this is Ishaq. This is Ismail عليه السلام, no doubt. فإنه ذكر بعده البشارة بإسحاق, because afterwards the bishara with Ishaq is mentioned. So this is not Ishaq, this is Ismail, and Ishaq will be given the glad tidings of Ishaq later. ولأن الله تعالى قال في بشراه بإسحاق, and because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in his bishara and his glad tidings with regards to Ishaq, he says فبشرناها بإسحاق ومن وراء إسحاق يعقوب. We gave Sarah, the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the bishara, the glad tidings for Ishaq, and after Ishaq is Yaqub. فدل على أن إسحاق غير الذبيح, because this is a debatable issue even in the books of Tafseer. Who's al-Dhabih? Who's the one that the verses right afterwards will talk about being to be slaughtered, to be, as Ibrahim alayhi salam would say to his son, that I want to slaughter you, but this is the command of Allah. So who is al-Dhabih? Of course it's Ismail alayhi salam. Some said it's Ishaq, no evidence to that. And the evidences gives the proof clearly that it's Ismail alayhi salam. ووصف الله إسماعيل عليه السلام بالحلم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala characterized Ismail alayhi salam with having hilm, forbearance, ويتضمن الصبر, which includes patience, وحسن الخلق, and good manners, وسعة الصدر, and spaciousness in his صدر, in his chest, to be patient, والعفو عمن جنى, and pardoning those who would transgress the limits against them or do any criminal acts against them. So this is what al-hilm is, that a person is not in haste to punish others or to seek even justice for his own self, but rather he let go and forgive and forget. So then after that فلما بلغ غلامه معه السعي, as it says فلما بلغ معه السعي قال يا بني إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك. But this is the next verses inshallah ta'ala. We'll talk about it next time, the incident and the test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Ibrahim alayhi salam. After going through this, you would think that that's it. A person is done and he's going to enjoy his family and the righteous ones and to raise them and to stay on his own like this, and no tests in life, and going from one test to another test. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave steadfastness to Ibrahim alayhi salam with these major tests. And he bestowed his favor upon him in this life and in the hereafter. وَآتَيْنَاهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا وَإِنَّهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ لَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Ibrahim alayhi salam that we gave him hasana, goodness in this life. And in the hereafter, he's from the righteous ones. When you look at his life, where is the hasana? The hasana to be a prophet of Allah, to be steadfast upon the deen of Allah, and to pass all of these trials with ease, with strength. He was not in state of misery. He was enjoying the fact that he's abd to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decree upon him, whether it's religiously or in the qadr of Allah. So we'll continue inshallah ta'ala next time with the rest of the verses. The attendance code inshallah is darban bil yamin. Attendance code is darban bil yamin. And before we continue, inshallah, we'll limit ourselves to the verses, of course. I mean, otherwise there's so much details. There are mentioned other verses of the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that can be dealt with in a comprehensive way of studying. For example, the subject of Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran, as it's been mentioned also. We have, yes, inshallah, starting today, inshallah, after Asr, which is 6 o'clock, inshallah, we'll have the durus of Ahkam al-Hajj, the ruling of al-Hajj, from the book of Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat. Today, inshallah, after Asr, till we finish the book, inshallah ta'ala, and we have after Maghrib the normal program, inshallah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy inshallah, make us learn inshallah. بارك الله فيكم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.